I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township, August 14, 2018. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, if Pastor Josh Rozak could come on up with Bedford Alliance Church and open us up in prayer.
Let us pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for today. We thank you that there is breath in our lungs, that you've given us life here today, and I pray you would bless these government officials in their actions and their decisions and their attitudes tonight, Lord. Just thank you for your grace and mercy on all of our lives and just letting us be here tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay, number 2, approval of the agenda. I'd like to do Barry a favor and move 8G in replace of 8D and just swap the two.
Is someone here from Sunrise Windows?
Well, Barry and them will both be together at that point. Is there someone here from Sunrise Windows? No.
Well, I don't want to make them late.
Okay. Yeah, look for a motion. Approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as with the one noted change.
Second.
Okay. Motion supported. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Number 3, consent agenda. The agenda committee reports. A, the committee recommends to the full board to approve and place on file the minutes of the July 17, 2018 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, the committee recommends to the full board to appoint J. Henry Lievens to the Downtown Development Authority for a partial term ending 12/31/19. C, the committee recommends to the full board to reappoint Brad Greeley to the Construction Board Code Board of Appeals for a third term ending 12/31/2020. D, the committee recommends to the full board to appoint Sherry Victorian to the Beautification Committee for a first term ending 12/31/2023.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Francis?
I'd like to propose a minor adjustment to the minutes. It's on page 3, the second from the bottom item where it talks request for approval of the bid out for the damaged maintenance building. What I'd like to propose that we do is add a couple words on the second line where it says their recommendation was to tear down the building. It ought to tear down the damaged portion of the building, not the whole building. So that's the change. Just add damaged portion of the building.
Okay. Yeah, look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we,
We've got a motion. That's a friendly amendment.
okay, go ahead.
I don't have a motion.
I didn't.
I thought we had a motion on the consent.
No. This,
Ms. Tinneberry?
I kind of think that when it comes to minutes, you have to pull the minutes and approve them with the amendment rather than just as a part of the whole consent agenda, because the minutes are a lifetime document. I don't think you can just, I mean, I agree with everything Paul said about the minutes, but I don't think you can, I think the minutes have to come off and be approved separately. And I'm not sure that motion, what was that motion for, the change in the minutes or the consent agenda?
Just that it was worded improperly.
I know, but you have to, the board has to separately approve the changes in the minutes if you want to ask Phil, but
No problem.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's the correct procedure to follow.
Okay, well, let's start with 3A first, Mr. Francis.
I move that we approve the minutes as amended.
support.
Okay, motion supported. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Okay, next would be 3, B, C, and D. I've already read them. I look for a motion on those 3 items.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items B, C, and D.
Support.
Motion
Second.
supported. Discussion?
Yeah, I do have some discussion with regard to the, where is that? Brad Greeley on the Construction Board of Appeal. I think Brad Greeley is a fantastic builder and businessman in Bedford, same way with the other gentleman that was on there. His name escapes me at the moment, but he's an excellent builder also. My concern is that it needs to be a 3-member board, as we all know, but to have 3 builders on there, what do we do when they bring something to the Construction Board of Appeals? So I'm just asking that that 3rd member, when he or she is appointed, be someone outside of the construction. I know they have to know the code and all of that, but they don't have to, could be someone in the fire department that knows the code.
Well, you have 3 members, so say Brad Greeley had a dispute on a code, you'd still have 2 members, and he could recuse himself.
2 members, you need an odd number.
No, I'm saying
That's
there's
just
3
my
members.
comment.
There's 3 members
Okay.
total.
Okay.
If Brad Greeley had to recuse himself, you'd still have 2.
But I'm just saying that what we got only shows 2 members, Bryce Bankowski and Brad Greeley.
Yeah, we still need a 3rd. We have 1 more hopefully coming.
Okay, so I believe what I said was that 3rd person be someone outside the construction.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 4, presentations. Okay.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Okay, 4 presentations, we have none. Number 5, public comment. Comments limited to 2 minutes for board agenda items only, and please address the chair. Okay, seeing none. 6, staff reports, 6A.
There's,
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Regarding 6A, I realize that the board doesn't need my approval, but I wanted to comment that I took a little bit of an offense to the manner in which Mr. Manning was interrogated as he spoke regarding why he chose which auditing services he selected at the last meeting. Not pointing fingers at anybody, it's just, you know, it's really difficult to come to these meetings. Secondly, 8C, not opposed to the TAP grant, but I am asking the board to disband the Lewis Avenue Corridor Committee. Instead, utilize the original steering committee along with the Temperance Action Committee who participated with the initial study. There are aspects of the current plan that are in question and maybe should not be put in place. I believe that we need to have the TAP grant. I just have some issues with what is currently going on in downtown Temperance.
Pryor, 1167 North Park. I just want to say, I don't think we should disband the Lewis Avenue Committee. They're all professional people. They work hard, and they want the best for Temperance. I can only ascertain that I think 3 members are on the TAC committee, so I think we have a much better committee with the amount of people that we have currently. Thank you.
Any more comments from the public?
Good evening, Logan Tisdale, Brandywine Street. Just in regards to staff reports, 6B, C, D, and E. I read somewhere it says that if your neighbor's house is on fire, your house is on fire. I'm thankful that the fire millage passed. So I would hope that the board would strongly consider approving items 6B, C, D, and E tonight for the fire department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments? Okay, seeing none. 6A, staff reports. Request for approval to accept a proposal for auditing services. Okay, Mr. Francis, you want to take this one, or Mr. Hertzberger?
Good, whatever you like.
Okay, go ahead. Well, when I got back, I'll kind of start us off. I watched the meeting, and so from there, I called all three auditing service, and before that, had Mr. Pryor do quite a bit of investigating in what is going on there. And so when I got back, we all sat down, called all three, and talked to them and had some discussions with them. And that's what Mr. Francis, he's got written down here. So if you want to go ahead.
Well, so that we can at least start discussing it, I prepared a motion that I'd like to read if you think it's necessary.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then we can have that seconded if somebody so chooses, and then we can discuss it. I move that the Bedford Township accept the proposal to provide auditing services for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018, presented by the certified public accounting firm of Ringo and Associates for a fee not to exceed $22,000. The reasons for my decision to not recommend accepting the lowest bid proposal are as follows. Ringo and Associates specialize in audits of financial statements for governmental entities. Ringo and Associates will conduct the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and as promulgated by the American Institute of CPAs, whereas the lowest bid proposal does not make such a statement. Ringo and Associates will audit the financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information, which collectively comprise the township's basic financial statements. The lowest bid proposal does not specify what funds will be audited. Ringo and Associates will issue an auditor's opinion on the financial statements with an in relation to opinion on combining and supplementary information. Such financial statements will be prepared in conformity with generally accepted accounting standards and principles. In addition, the auditor will prepare the comprehensive annual financial report. The lowest bid proposal did not specify which financial statements will be prepared and reported on. Ringo and Associates has Michigan Township auditing experience, whereas the lowest bid proposal does not have any Michigan Township auditing experience. And finally, the institutional knowledge of Bedford Township funds and operations that Don McGuire brings with him to Ringo and Associates is valuable but difficult to evaluate in dollars. That's the reason that I am making that recommendation as a motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
A second.
Motion supported. Discussion?
I have a question for clarification. I just want to be sure that in the selection of the auditing firm, that this firm would not in any way participate in the closure of our books. They were simply referring and handling auditing procedures. They're not preparing any of the reports that are a culmination of the actual accounting for the finance director's office. Is that correct? Or is part of this bid engaging in or assisting with final closeout reports? I just am curious as the new member to the board and want to make sure I understand where that line of delineation is.
Well, I think in any audit I've been involved in, I've been in quite a few in past years, the auditors come in and they propose adjustments to be made to the general ledger of the client, whatever that would be. Some of those adjustments are based on information that the client provides them. Others are based on information that they develop in their audit process. There are entries proposed by them to the client. The client needs to sign off on those and agree and accept them. If that's not done, then you could draw an inference that they have violated the independence because you really can't audit your own work. Should not audit your own work.
Exactly.
That's a very, I guess it's a legal definition, I phrase it that way, that needs to be adhered to by any auditing firm. I don't know if that answered your question, TC.
It does. So ultimately, anything they find, the adjustments are still handled and conducted by our staff. The same way, so they would recommend a journal entry, but in our case, Mr. Manning would conduct the actual entry itself, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's why I just wanted to be sure I understood what you were proposing.
And all the entries are posted by him to our general ledger at the end of the audit, after the audit.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Tinberry?
Well then, I have several questions, but what does preparation of approximately 37 to 45 GAAP journal entries mean?
If you want me to answer, I think there are entries that need to be made to have our general ledger in conformity with the auditing standards and general accepted accounting principles. Maybe Mr. Manning can further answer
Come on up,
that if
Dave.
you need.
It sounds like that's what the auditing firm is supposed to do. Posting of the entries above to an adjusted trial balance. Posting is a verb, action verb.
Can you expound on that, Dave?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Mr. Francis just talked about how firms cannot audit their own work.
Correct.
So posting of entries into our system would be part of the work that they'd be auditing.
Okay,
I would post the entries into the financial system at Bedford Township. The auditor would not.
What,
the auditor prepares a trial
Right.
balance based on our general ledger, and then he proposes the entries, and the auditor posts it to his trial balance,
well,
and then gives the entries to the client, us, and then we would post them to the actual general ledger.
Correct.
the way these 6 topics in this memo read, it doesn't read that way. So I'm just saying it's confusing. But from the very beginning, this has been confusing. We had an RFP dated May 16th. I stated all this last time, but I guess we didn't have full board, so. May 16th, we had an RFP. It was not published until June 20th, and the June 20th said that the RFPs had to be into the clerk's office by June 30th. June 30th was a Saturday, but the posting said at that time, June 30th, the entries would be opened and read. The minutes to the bid opening were dated July 3rd. So I suppose we could get a ruling from our attorney, but having been involved with bid processes in the past, what is posted in the paper has to follow the process, 1, by the Open Meetings Act, and 2, allowing anyone to be present at the bid opening, including the bidders and anyone from the public. From June 30th to June, or from June 20th to June 30th, might sound like 10 days, but it's not 10 business days. June 30th was on a Saturday. So to me, that made for a very limited amount of people who could have given their proposal. I talked to a number of other, a number, 3, other auditing firms, and they read over the RFP, and seemed like all three met the requirements in the RFP. They would have done the same thing. That's all with regard to the whole bid process, which I think was just not done right. With regard to Mr. McGuire, this isn't about Don McGuire. Somehow we always, on this board, get back to some personal thing. It's not about Don McGuire. Don McGuire's been an auditor for years. He's done a good job. But I called Don McGuire's office, and Don McGuire's still in business as Donald McGuire, CPA. I called other firms that use McGuire and Associates. They had no idea that he was going into business with Ringo. So, I mean, I question that too. Is he with Ringo, or is he still his own accountant? I just think there's too many things about this that just have too many questions unanswered, and I don't think that we should accept any bid at this point. I think that we should start all over. And I know what you're going to say, that it's too close to the end of the year, but, you know, it wasn't in May. It wasn't in May too close. Now, after all these months, it's too close. So that doesn't sound right to me either. That's all I have to say.
I have one correction with the dates. The May 16th date, that was the draft. It actually didn't get approved by the board till June 5th. So that's why it couldn't be published till June 10th.
Well, it didn't say draft on the copy that I had.
Mr. Frederick?
At the last meeting, there were so many open questions that arose. Mr. Supervisor, as you indicated when you looked at it, and I did after the meeting, I looked at it again, there were so many questions that were open that needed to be resolved before this board could make a reasonable, rational business decision. I'm informed that the open questions were delivered to the three firms so that we obviously treated each of them equally, and the answers came back. I somewhat agree with Ms. Tinberry in the process that we used, although I agree with the conclusion, but for a different reason. This should have been started in January or February, not so late in the year. But at that time, that's what we decided to do. And now we're in a crunch period. I sent an email out to all of you suggesting that we would at least want to use Mr. McGuire for this year, only because he has the institutional memory and he has a close relationship with all of the staff members here while we sorted all this out. I didn't get any response to that, which is okay. So my view is that this should have been started earlier so that many of these questions that arose at the last meeting would have been addressed, the answers clearly delivered to the board, and we would have been able to make a rational business decision. We have to make one tonight only because we're so late in the year. So that's my view. I agree with the conclusion. I just disagree with the process. Thank you.
Ms. Tinberry?
I just want to clarify one thing. Did Ms. Hirschberger say June 10th? Because the publication here from Monroe Evening News says June 20th.
Oh, I thought you said June 10th. I'm sorry.
No, published June 20th, opened 4 p.m. June 30th. So I don't know how anyone expected. Were you here June 30th and opened it? I just want to know.
No, but not one person on this board caught that, including myself, that we had a Saturday date.
Well, okay, again,
And I
I'm not,
understand your point, I'm just saying that.
okay, it's not judgmental, it's just facts.
Well, I can help clear up a few things. I did talk to the low bidder today, and I asked, how long would something like this take? And they said 2.5 weeks. Now, whether or not they're right or wrong, I don't know, because I've heard typically it takes 2.5 months. But he did indicate, because I myself couldn't get around spending $8,000 more. And he did indicate that he thought that it was a misbid, that they were about $6,600 to $8,000 under what they should have been, because they didn't, Mr. Francis, catch the portion where it says, if you want to explain it a little bit better than I'm saying that.
Well, the items that Mr. Manning requested are these items included in all the bids? And two of the firms said yes, it is included, and the low bidder was waffling a bit, being unsure that they were and probably were not included in the bid. And that were they to be added to that, it might increase the number.
6,000 to 8,000. So all three bids would have been right around the 22,000 mark. Just so you know. But if we were going to bid it out, it doesn't sound like it's a 2.5 month process. If we were to try to bid it out again, I don't know that. That was just one auditing firm that told me that. Go ahead.
I think the reason that it takes so long is because we do not have the staff here that can make all of the adjustments that are necessary to make it in conformity with the generally accepted accounting principles and standards for auditing. We don't have the staff. We only got one person. If it were a much larger township that might have 4 or 5 in the accounting department, why, that's a different story, but we don't have that. And if we were to have all of those schedules and the like to get prepared for the audit done, then it would take the auditor less time, and you might be able to do it in a couple of weeks if you had everything done, you walked in and just ripped right through it. I've been involved in several of those either way, where if the client has it ready, the audit takes a lot less time. Those are companies that have the staff that's adequate for it. We don't.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion to support. Could you please call the roll?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Nay.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-1. Thank you for all the bidders that are out there. We appreciate it. Okay, 6B, request for approval for the purchase of a LifePak 15 cardiac monitor and equipment for physio consultants. Chief Massingill?
Thank you and good evening. First agenda item we have tonight is a request for that LifePak. So with their new ambulance purchase that was ordered about a year ago, and with the transition to advanced life support, we had one LifePak 15 that allows us to provide advanced life support to our residents. Currently with the staff, and even more so with the equipment that we have, we had to make a decision about generally which side of the township we place that equipment, and where we could be quicker with that. If you recall and you remember back with the Lucas devices, the CPR devices, at the time with those Lucas devices, we opted to buy 2 so that we could provide coverage throughout the township. And we didn't opt to do that right away with the LifePak, just simply based on the cost. We wanted to wait. We wanted to get the advanced level of service in place and make sure it was a smooth transition. But tonight we bring a request to you for a second LifePak so that we can station it on the east side of the township, which should increase our capacity to provide that level of service. We're very comfortable at this time that we can increase the hours of service we're providing and do a better job for our residents.
Okay. Questions from board members? Seeing none, I look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second. Second.
Motion supported, discussion.
Who seconded?
Mr. Steiner, I believe.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 6C, request for approval for the purchase of 6 sets of firefighter turnover gear from Dingy's Fire Company. Chief?
Yeah, this is part of our turnout gear replacement plan, so we aim to replace about 6 sets a year, so that when our existing sets expire, they expire after about 10 years. Some of them don't even last that long, but instead of incurring 50 or 60 sets and the cost of that at the 10-year mark, we aim to replace about 6 sets a year of the older gear that's a little more worn out, so that we don't have a big capital expense in a couple of years. This is just a continuation of that with 6 more sets.
Okay, discussion? Mr. Steiner?
Make a motion to approve for the purchase of the turnout gear from Dingus Fire Equipment at the cost of $20.94 per set. What's the number again? It's the total for 6. Yeah, it's $12,569.70 for 6 units.
Support.
Okay, motion supported, discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Is that supported by Mr. Clemens? Okay. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 6D, request for approval to transfer the 2014 Ford Expedition to the fire department. Chief?
Yes, sir. So our apparatus replacement plan called for, in this budget year, the replacement of another ambulance and an SUV. We were pleasantly surprised to find out that the Sheriff's Department was no longer using the 2014 Expedition, and certainly it gives us the option. We've evaluated it. We think it would be a good fit for us, and that we could delay that purchase of the SUV on our end for hopefully a number of years, taking it out of our replacement plan this year and moving it back. We think that probably it would cost $4,000 to $5,000 to outfit it and license it, so that we could get it in service. We can get it in service rather quickly, and certainly compared to the $50,000 we expected and budgeted to spend this year, we think it's really a good value, and we spoke with the supervisor to see if it was something that we could possibly utilize.
Well, it sounds like you'll save a lot of years on the Expedition, or the ambulance, and utilizing it.
We will in a couple different reasons. Right now, it's slated to replace the 1996 Suburban, so certainly, again, with reliability and service-wise, it's definitely a much newer vehicle, as well as helping and aiming to keep our miles off as many as we can from the newer ambulances. We're much better off to put miles on a 2014 Expedition than a new ambulance. So we're hoping to extend the life of the ambulances as well.
Okay. Discussion from board members? Mr. Frederick?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Support.
Moved and supported, discussion?
I have a
Ms.
question.
Tinneberry?
I just have a comment for the supervisor who provided the memo. I would like you to be a little more detailed in your memos. One little sentence with regard to this very important board action is not sufficient for me.
Okay.
A little more detail. Thank you.
A question.
Ms. Hirschberger?
How fast do you need this? I mean, do we need to approve this amount, this 5,000 to get it outfitted so it can be on the road right away, or?
You know, I'm pretty comfortable with bringing it back and getting the number nailed down a little
Okay,
bit. That seems
I
to
just
be-
wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that seems pretty vague. I'd feel more comfortable if we get some pricing here. I probably can't make it by the next board agenda next week, clearly, but to bring it back in September and have a little better idea would make me feel more comfortable.
Okay.
So then what are we approving? Just that
The
the
use.
fire department gets, okay.
I didn't really know what else to put on the memo,
Oh,
other than they're taking them.
call me next time, I'll give you my questions.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Frederick.
Aye.
Mr. Francis.
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry.
Aye.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Clemens.
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 6E, request for approval to accept the FY 2017 staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grant for the Bedford Township Fire Department.
So, a number of months ago, we applied for it, what's commonly known as a SAFER grant. It's a staffing grant. It's no secret, probably not just in our community, but in many communities that volunteer fire service is very difficult. It's a lot of hours, it's a lot of time that we expect out of our members. And as we looked into the future and looked at some options for supplementing our volunteer fire department, we opted to apply for this grant. We were successful, and we were notified that we were successful for the grant in the amount of $536,071. The long and short of the grant is it's a 3-year grant in which we've been approved to hire 4 full-time firefighters. So those 4 full-time firefighters would do a couple of things for us. Number one, it would provide us staffing 24 hours a day. We currently staff from 6 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. But with this grant, we would be able to staff 24 hours a day, which would improve our responses. It would also give us the ability to meet the provisions with the Advanced Life Support Initiative that we had. We were given a 2-year period with which we needed to be able to guarantee advanced life support 24/7, 365. This would meet that criteria, as well as improving on our response standards. So the NFPA response standards say for a suburban department, volunteer department, we should be arriving on scene of structure fires within 10 minutes with 10 firefighters 80% of the time. That is very difficult to do. There are very few fire departments that are doing it, and one of the driving forces behind the SAFER grant is to help fire departments get closer to that, if not meet that 80% standard. So that was the reasons, and those were the provisions that we set forth in which we requested the grant. Again, we were approved. On the second page of the request is the breakdown. There would be a financial commitment for us for those first 3 years. After the 3-year period of performance for the grant, the township would have to make a decision whether we wanted to continue on with the combination of volunteer and full-time staff. We've done some budget numbers. I believe I provided the budget numbers to you, kind of a 5-year outlook of the budget numbers, and we believe that for the period of performance, we won't need any additional funding outside of our existing millage to accomplish this grant. So we certainly would recommend or request that the grant be accepted. We've got 30 days to accept the grant from when it was offered, which was on the 3rd of this month. And then in succession, we're requesting that the board approve for 4 full-time positions be awarded for the fire department.
Do you foresee those positions being put in-house?
So much as we can, yes, we're going to look in-house. The government is very, very specific with who can and cannot be awarded these positions. So we're going to our intent would be, given approval, to have an internal job posting and see what type of interest we get internally. Realistically, at least some of them, but we're not sure all of them would be internal.
Yeah.
So
First of all, thank you for doing this and putting in the extra work to get this. This is huge, if you ask me. I know some people have concerns, how are you going to pay for it and after the grant's over with? So if you could expound on that a little bit. Yeah,
we, first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're doing as the grant was intended. So really, this 3 years is a time for us to show value to the board and to the citizens that what we've got and what we've been provided with these 4 positions increases our service, improves the service delivery that we have, and improves the safety for both our responders and for the public. So certainly to be understaffed with less than the 10 firefighters and structure fires, it increases risk for us and for the public. So we think that this is really just a good opportunity for us to prove that over the next 2-3 years that these positions are important, that we're doing a good job, and then we're going to have to down the road have some serious discussions and see if there's value in continuing with the program past the excuse me, past the period of performance.
Okay. Questions from the board? Mr. Frederick?
The Fire Advisory Board spent some, Mr. Francis and I are representatives there. We spent at length making sure that the funding was there to support this program. The chief said he talked to Mr. Manning, they'd worked out a spreadsheet. I confirmed that with Mr. Manning. Yep, he worked out the spreadsheet. The money's there to make this work. This is similar to the DOJ COPS grant process that we had a few years ago, where we were able to bring a second, third, fourth deputy sheriff on board. And again, the Department of Justice paid 75% of the cost through the 3 years, and there was a real strong argument that you had to keep them on afterward. One of the questions that Mr. Francis and I and other members of the Fire Advisory Board said, well, what happens at the end of the 3rd year? Because now you've had employees here for 3 years doing exactly what they want. And he said, well, we have to show value, and that way we can probably continue on. We may have to just adjust the budget to make that work. I think this is a great opportunity to add value to our citizens, and particularly with respect to the fact that these are paramedics. A large portion of our responses are, in fact, medical related. I think all of us on the board have seen their reports, and I think that this is an opportunity that we would be absolutely remiss if we didn't approve this and let it go forward.
Mr. Clements?
I agree completely. I also wanted to say that congratulations. Obviously, the grant is a big deal. But the other thing that I really think this board would say is I appreciate the manner in which you have systematically brought this online in addition to the ambulance and in addition to the life pack and the Lucas device. At every turn, it is systematically lined up and been justified, and the plan's been well laid out, and it's been very easy to see where you're going. And I appreciate you taking that. That's not a small task. But I appreciate you doing that because it's easier to make these large expenditure decisions when you have that much homework provided for you and it makes clear sense. I think the only other thing that I would say, in addition to what do we do in 3 years, is without question, our call volume increases each year. And not to use the word alarming, but it's increasing at a significant rate. And so I agree with Mr. Frederick that 3 years from now, we may find that the need is just absolutely there, and it will be an easy decision. But I appreciate that we have a 3-year look at what it's going to look like, as opposed to having to risk fund balance money or sacrifice in other areas of the budget to be able to have that same opportunity.
Will these be union employees, and is there an opportunity for the employees to unionize?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be a decision that the employees would
Okay.
make.
Okay. Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, just to add on, I want to say, Chief, you've done a tremendous job in the short time you've been here. You've done exactly what we've asked for. As Mr. Clements pointed out, you gave us a good look for the next 3 years, what this would cost us. And just like our roads plan, I see you, without even asking, I see you going down every year, looking out 3 to 5 years consistently, which you have done on a regular basis. You've proven yourself to stay within your means. You've found alternatives to stay within your means. You have to applaud you for that. One of the things I do want to say, and I've said this for a number of years, that I see us having a full-time fire department emergency response force before we would have a full-time sheriff's or police department within Bedford. And the reason I feel strongly about that is the fact that you have a great group of volunteers. and it's very tough on their lives. It's tough on any firefighter or emergency response person to, you know, be on call 24/7 and to get out there. I've run into some of your firefighters recently, extremely happy with what they do, and just stating facts that it gets more and more difficult every day when you have a full-time job, you have a family, you've got other responsibilities, and when you have changing job environments, maybe changing work schedules from your, that's their bread and butter. I mean, the fire department does not pay their family wages to be able to support a family. So I see this as the start of what I've been thinking for a number of years. I think that with your leadership, you're going to take this 4-member crew and help to develop this department. I know that it's always going to come down to the dollars at some point, but I think that if you continue to manage strongly, keep your money in your coffers as long as you can, just like the expedition, take that on board, save yourself, probably $40,000 minimum for how many years? I mean, I applaud that. So that's the kind of thinking we need. And the last thing I want to say is, you were asked some questions initially about this grant, and you had a very well bullet-pointed, detailed response of some of the things that we don't meet today. I mean, we do an extremely good job with the limited resources and the time that we have. But to be precise with the timing, the number of people attending these fires, what the expectations are, et cetera. And as you stated in your memo, the biggest part, you said that a lot of full-time fire departments, not talking township and volunteer, full-time, full-paid, 24-hour fire departments, don't meet those standards. So for us to even get close, and I know that you've got some great times out there and response times that we've even done better than some full-time departments with volunteers. It just gets tougher every day. So I'm definitely in favor of moving forward on something like this.
Thank you, sir. And if I might add a little bit to that, we're frequently asked that. Often we're asked, well, what do you mean you're not a full-time department yet? Because I think that the guys do such a good job that sometimes the public perception is that we are full-time. And my second point would be, well, I would probably tend to agree and disagree with you a little bit. As far as a full-time department, this would certainly take us into a combination department in that we're utilizing full-time members. But instead of accelerating the prospect of a complete full-time department, this would probably slow it down a little bit. And when I'm asked, when are we going to be full-time, because I get asked that a lot, like I said, and my answer is when it's too much for our volunteers. The number of training hours, the number of calls that we're running, it is a lot to ask of our volunteers. And it becomes a point where it's a personal choice for them and their families that it's just too much to give anymore. With these 4 positions, I think that we're actually extending the clock to when we need to become a full-time department, probably by a number of years, well down the road, because these 4-time positions can take some pressure off of our volunteers just by the amount of work that they can do and help out doing. So as we talked about it in the officers' meetings and with the department members in the past week and a half, we wanted to make sure that they both understood, or that they understood, and probably you as well, that these 4 positions will supplement our volunteer fire department for a number of years instead of vice versa. Oftentimes, full-time fire departments are supplemented by volunteer staff, by a handful of volunteer staff, but that, fortunately for us and fortunately for the budget, isn't going to be the case. We can stay away from probably for a number of years, a large full-time staff and the expense associated with that.
And I agree with that. It's just that maybe I didn't state it clearly, but I'm talking long-term full-time, but it's going to come someday. Because, again, I hate to say it, but a lot of the younger folks out there today, they don't get into volunteering. They don't get into organizations. They don't do, a lot of the things that we've seen for so many years. And that's also hurting the attendance.
Sure.
Talking about millennials?
I didn't say that, Paul.
Oh, Ms. Tinderberg?
Let me just start with in my mind, a clarification. People are confused when we just say volunteer fire department. They are paid on call. They do get some, I mean, it's certainly not anything to write home about, but there is some reimbursement for what they do. And I haven't talked to any recently, but in years past, when we talked about going to a full-time fire department sometime in the future, the ones that didn't want to were the volunteers, because they love it. They like it so much. They can't do it for a full-time job, but they love giving back to their community, and they love the surge that it gives them when they get to go out and save a life, or you have to go because don't stay on my account. I want to say that I did send you a list of detailed questions, and I want to thank you publicly for your answer. You were very thorough. You understand me very well, that I have to have all of the information. I'm just, I've never gotten such a great, thorough response. I know you sent it to the whole board, which was well-deserved for them to know all the information as well. So I want to thank you for that. My question, though, tonight is, you said that you would try to take from within, which I would hope that you could, but your letter says the award would provide 75% of the annual cost for a first-year firefighter.
Correct.
So what does that mean?
So the budgeting on the back is based on, and when we submitted the grant, it's based on regionally what a first-year firefighter would make. So if we opted in year 2 and year 3 to give raises, as the township normally does, they don't increase that amount. What's set there in the paperwork is the amount that they're going to give us. Should we choose to give raises down the way, we will have to budget for that within our existing budget. That's why it's defined as first-year firefighter, because if there was a labor agreement and it dictated that second year they got this and third year they got this, that is not part of the grant. They're very specific.
Okay, so it's you can't interpret that as saying a brand-new, never-before firefighter.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
The other thing I just want to say is I really appreciate this. I'm going to put it on a frame in our bedroom, but if my husband will let me. Because this is wonderful, 5-year budget plan. It's just, I'm only going to be here 2 more years, but I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to hold you to it.
We'll believe it when we see it. Macho.
Thank you, I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any more? Ken?
And if I could speak to that for just a second. My biggest fear in accepting this is it throws up the dynamics of what we've got, which is a great thing going. We want to be very careful, and we wanted to be very careful about how we handled this. We had an officers meeting for about 2.5 hours last week, and discussed the dynamics, and we don't want to alienate anyone that's within the department right now. So we want to make sure that the transition and the direction that we're going is smooth and everyone's comfortable. We believe that we've come up with a system really that continues to allow for, as it allows right now. We think that we've got a good system in place where the paid-on-call members that want to be more volunteer or truly in the sense of volunteer are comfortable. We've tried to be sensitive of that, as well as the paid-on-call members that want to be really, really active in things. And I think we're pretty close to that. Only time will tell, but the importance of the group dynamics has not been lost on us. It won't be as we work forward on this.
Wonderful.
Okay. I look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Brett? Oh, Mr. So you have a question, or are you doing a motion?
Motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move that the Township Board approve the SAFER grant request in the amount of $536,071 for hiring 4 full-time firefighters for a 3-year period, with the payment of 75% of the annual cost of the first-year firefighters for the first 2 years of the grant, and 35% of the annual cost for the first-year firefighter for the 3rd year.
Support.
Motion is supported. Discussion? Seeing none.
I'll just add one more thing. This will help, we talked about this at the Advisory Board, and that is the ALS service will be improved substantially with bringing on paramedics at the schedules that we have here now. That doesn't mean we don't have paramedics out there today, but it will increase our ability to provide ALS service to our citizens and, of course, anyone traveling through our community. But, you know, we're 24/7 for everyone in our community, and that's the important thing. Thank you.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens? Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0.
I've taken up enough of your time, but I just wanted to thank the board, thank the community for the support. It's been a big week for the county with the 911 surcharge. It's been a big week for us with the millage, the surcharge, and this grant. The things that happened in the past 7 to 10 days have set the tone, or are going to set the tone for our department for a couple of decades. So we certainly appreciate the community support and the board support on all of this.
Yeah, we appreciate, oh, go ahead, Mr. Francis.
Before the chief leaves, I got a question for him.
Yes, sir.
At the Fire Advisory Board meeting earlier this week, your lovely wife was in attendance, and you mentioned that she was there because it's date night. My question of you is tonight another date night because she's in the audience?
Yes, sir. Yes. We've got to get date nights when we can squeeze them in.
You're a lot cheaper than I thought.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do we have to create the 4 full-time positions
Do you
that
what?
we just gave a grant for?
Do we have to?
Well, they
We don't have 4 full-time positions. Don't we have to create that?
well,
So I'll make a motion that we create 4 full-time firefighter positions
After we get the money.
after we get the money.
This could be all folks.
well, they clearly become full-time positions with
But there's no
benefits
position
and
at this
everything else that they're
point.
entitled to.
Phil's shaking his head, yes, we
Yeah,
need
I
to
support.
create
Yeah.
them.
Okay, motion and supported, discussion? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Did you have something to say, Mr. Goldsmith?
No, we just have to create the positions in conformance and pursuant to the grant.
Okay, good catch, Trudy.
Yeah, thank you, Trudy.
Good job, Drew.
Item 8B,
We're not cleaning up.
item 8B. Oh, we're on 8A, yes.
8A.
Request for approval of vouchers for payment. Ms. Stanberry threw me off over there.
I'd like to make a motion, the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $286,337.15. Fire District, $52,740.57. Police Fund, $97,902.05. Park Fund, $8,191.01. Transit System Fund, $19,721. Library Fund, $7,267.55. Water Revenue Fund, $7,400. Rehabilitation Fund, $4,850. Mildred Drive, SAD, $1,769.98. Springbrook, SAD, $3,571.75. Downtown Development Authority, $10,208.99. Sewer O&M Fund, $703,502.47. Trust and Agency Fund, $33,872.03 for a grand total of $1,237,334.55.
I'll support.
Okay, motion is supported, discussion?
Just an item of information. The reason that's so much money this time is it includes some special things. One is the normal quarterly bill for our deputy sheriffs, and that's about $242,000 roughly. We've got a bi-monthly sewer operating bill, that's $385,000, and we have sewer bond payments included in here for $306,000. So that adds up to about $930-some thousand out of the $1.2 million. That's why it's so large this time. Unusual items.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Yes, first of all, I want to say, I understand that this meeting was postponed a week. I also understand that there are certain bills that can be paid before approval, but I was I was taken aback by the number of checks that were written prior to approval that do not meet that requirement. Just wanted to make that statement.
Okay.
They have to be approved before they can be signed and sent. That's it.
I know, Trudy, did you want to comment, or you want to call the roll?
I was just going to say that some of these had to go out due to dates of being overdue because of the week. And some of them, like you said, have to be.
I understand the week, but there are some, if you look closely, there are some that could have waited, employees.
We can tell the employees they'll have to wait from now on.
Okay?
I think it's always been past practice that employees, if they have expenses, that we get them paid right away. But if this board chooses us not to do that, we can change that.
I don't think that's one of the allowed expenses that can be paid without approval, that's all I'm saying. That, I mean, it is what it is because of the law or some kind of fiscal law or something, but I know it's there. Okay, I just wanted to make the comment.
Okay.
Mr. Frederick?
I'd be a little concerned if we have to start paying late fees. So we
I
have to
said,
do
I didn't say
planning.
late fees.
Yeah.
I understand that, Lamar.
I understand.
He's talking about, I think you're talking about the mileage payment, right, to an employee?
Mileage, petty cash, I mean, I'm not gonna go through them all,
Yeah.
but there are more than,
Those, I mean, I would think those checks could wait, it's not somebody's payroll check.
exactly, well, no, the payroll's
So,
not on
okay.
there.
All right, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8B, request for approval of the Manick and Smith agreement for engineer inspection services for the 2018 road improvement projects. Mr. Bushman?
Good evening. We have a contract before you for the inspection services. We obviously have a number of projects that the board has approved with the Monroe County Road Commission this year. There are 4 particular projects where we are proposing inspection services, that being Monroe Road, Douglas Road, Jackman Road, and an independent subdivision overband crack filling project that's not performed by the Monroe County Road Commission. We have approximately 16 days of service. These are services that the Road Commission, due to staffing, is unable to perform. Basically, it involves inspection services for density and the physical inspection of the asphalt overlay and surfacing work. The contract amounts to, we've tried to keep our services to a minimum amount, and overall it amounts to only about 1% of the overall cost of the 4 projects.
Okay.
So,
I did get a question from somebody this week about that. Why do we have to pay for the $9,800 for, the roads to be inspected? Why isn't the road commission doing that? And I said just that, because I've asked, they just don't have the staff that can be on all these projects in the county, to make sure they're done properly. And if we don't have you guys out there doing it, nobody's out there inspecting our work that's in the township, but.
and just to make it
So if you want
clear,
to expound on that a little more.
Excuse me, yes. The one thing we do want to make clear is the Road Commission did a number of miles of chip seals and overbank crack filling. That work we do not inspect because it is the Monroe County Road Commission services, and they perform the work.
Okay.
So.
Ms. Tinneberry?
I only have one question on the overbank crack fill and the subdivisions. An 8-hour meeting, and who's doing it? Are you bidding it out?
We did bid it out.
Oh.
The Road Commission bid it out. That is the work we're doing on the subdivisions where there were special assessment districts.
Right.
And we agreed to, the board had agreed to go in and make some necessary maintenance type repair, overband crack filling. on those jobs. So the road commission could not do that under their contract. It was not set up to be done with their contractor doing overband. So we prepared a separate independent contract that went out for bid. The original estimate that was prepared, and we anticipated a cost of about $28,000. The good part is the contract actually came in around $14,000, so we were almost 50% savings on the actual contract. We did, of course, do extensive due diligence on the contractor, came back with very positive feedback from his references throughout the other governmental agencies he does work with, and but the one comment that was made is they do very good work, but you got to give them off on the right foot. And so that's why we put a few hours in to do some inspection, make sure they got off on the right foot.
Okay, that's what that 8 hour, okay. I thought
Yeah.
it meant for the, okay, and did the same contractor that the road commission used get the bid?
No.
Oh, too bad. Thought we might get in on their discount, but.
Well, we
okay.
got a pretty good
Just let the
discount as
company-
it was.
Yeah, it sounds good, I'm not complaining. That's it.
Any more discussion? Mr. Frederick?
What are you going to inspect on Monroe Road? They're done, gone. Those folks are back up in Ann Arbor or wherever.
Well,
What are
actually,
you going to inspect now?
We actually did the
You do a
work,
windshield
yeah.
job, run up and down the road, yeah, it's finished, it's got 2-inch overlay, they ground it up, whatever.
Yeah, we got a little bit behind the 8 ball on that one. We actually did all the inspection already for you, so if this contract isn't approved, you got a big freebie.
Oh, boy,
Is it-
don't open that door.
Is that, all those little deceleration, they're all done, are they, or?
The contractor I saw, yeah, today, I think they finished 100%. There was
Okay.
about a 2-week delay, and it was a, I don't know, labor dispute, I guess.
Yeah,
Mr. I won't make you go into the
No,
particulars, but
I
we're
know.
we're back in business again, and
Okay,
Gherkin is
good.
paving again,
All right.
so.
Mr. Steiner?
Mr. Bushman, just one quick comment. I know you said, the overband crack fill, you're talking about some of the special assessments that have gone in. Just a note that when they do overband crack fill seal, I hope they truly do just that, because I've seen various places with crack seal that it looks like spaghetti and it goes through and 50% of the cracks are still there. And I know it's difficult to hit every crack with a crack seal, but there's times where I've seen stuff, it's like, really? I mean,
Right.
it's almost like nothing's done because, yeah, this one's filled, but now all the water's gonna go through that one and the salt and the water and elements and everything else.
When you guys inspect the crack seal, did you walk at the road or you drive it?
We walked the road, yeah.
Okay, because I was going to say, when they did my old subdivision, I walked it, and many cracks went all the way to the base. They had to come out, and redo it, the whole thing, fill them again.
If they're
yeah.
big. The good part is that most of these are in special assessment districts that don't have a lot of severe cracking. And that's what we're trying to get ahead of the game so we prevent the deterioration.
Yeah, prevent the spider web.
Okay. I look for a motion.
Move we approve the Manikin Smith agreement for professional services for Monroe Road, Douglas Road, Jackman Road, and subdivision overband crack fill,
Okay.
as presented.
I'll second.
Motion supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens? Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. 8C, request for approval to accept the TAP grant and to approve Manikin Smith Engineering Design Services for downtown Temperance improvements. Mr. Bushman?
Okay, Lucy Fortin is with me tonight. She worked on preparation of the grant. And what you have tonight is the new exhibit is an update and summary of the work that will be performed, that was awarded under the TAP grant that was approved by the board. It is currently approved through SEMCOG. It is approved for a 2019 project, which means we want to bid it by March, and that would be bid through the Michigan Department of Transportation, which requires basically our plans to be in place by the end of the year. The work that's included includes completion of areas of sidewalk, specifically down by Ivor Lindsay to connect with Temperance. We also have some on the east side of the road to connect some of the subdivisions, and also at the north end of Temperance from Howard Street south. So we've completed essentially the interconnectivity with the various subdivisions. Included also with that is the installation of the pedestrian signals at Temperance and Lewis, pavement markings along there for both bicycle and parking, and we also, at the intersection of Temperance and Lewis, are looking at special enhancements, which includes specialty brick pavers, low decorative walls, some benches and trash receptacles, and some large planters for seasonal decorations and flowers. As part of this grant, at the lower right-hand corner, which only somebody with magnifying glasses can see, we had one modification which we presented before the Monroe County Road Commission Board last night. We were requested to do so. What that entailed was the original configuration of the proposed striping included two 12-foot lanes, two 5-foot bike lanes, and one 8-foot parking lane on one side of the road. After our due diligence and further discussion with the Road Commission and their engineering group, and looking at minimum requirements with AASHTO and NACTO, we had a very good meeting with the Road Commission, and it was decided, as we all know, we have inclement weather, rain, snow, and that sort of thing. With the original proposal, it would require traffic to actually shift over and move over since it was not symmetric. We felt that it was a much safer condition, and the Road Commission agreed to it, and the Road Board last night approved it, that we go to a symmetric layout, which includes two 11-foot drive lanes, two 5-foot bike lanes on either side, and 7-foot parking lanes. So it'll be symmetric, and the center line will remain on the center line of the road.
Two 7-foot parking lanes, you said?
Two, one on
Two,
each
okay.
side of the road,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
So all the parking will remain on both sides of the road.
Which I might add, the business owners are thrilled about, that they're gonna have parking on both sides of the street, so. Ms. Stinberry?
How far do the biking lanes go?
How far do they go?
How far down Lewis Avenue?
Well, to the south, the goal is to merge them right back into where the 7-foot existing paved shoulder is going south.
Merge them back in, so that means they end where?
Well, they really don't end. I mean, they merge back, because it is a paved shoulder. If you remember south of Lewis, remember when we did that? We put some of the striping needs to be really, we've lost some of the striping designation in that area, but there is a paved shoulder south of Temperance.
Okay.
And essentially it ended up around where Car Park ends, or I mean,
Ivor Lindsay.
thank you. Or,
There's a drain also, this
yeah. Yeah, just north, on
That's
the north
north.
end of Temperance where the park. essentially.
How far south? Past Dean? No?
Yeah,
Just to
it,
be-
well, I mean, this project ends at right where the 7-foot, where the paved shoulder starts, south of Temperance. Because the original lane, as you come into Temperance, the 2-lane pavement has paved shoulders in that area.
I know, but is it going to be designated as a bike lane?
Could you come up to the mic, please? Sorry.
We were specifically requested to continue the bike lane marking after the formal bike lanes, which really are to the extent of where you have curb and gutter in Temperance. After that, it is a paved shoulder, or considered a paved shoulder, but there will still be some marking, pavement markings, both north and south of the project, as requested by SEMCOG. So there will be pavement markings and sign also, all the way from Dean to, I think there's a couple south of the project.
Okay, so they're really not very long.
The bike lanes, no, they're not. They're only in that section of the roadway that has curb and gutter, downtown, 25 miles per hour.
Well, in the past, we had problems with people passing on the bike lane, and it was very hazardous to bikers, and so, in a way, I kind of hate to see them enticed into a bike lane that doesn't even go a mile, so, I mean, that's just,
Well, the bike lane merges, as Barry was trying to explain, kind of ends into a paved shoulder. So it doesn't really end in nowhere. It continues into the paved shoulders, both north and south.
I'm talking about safety in terms of people being drawn into a paved shoulder that other drivers use as a passing on the right lane. That's my concern. If it's not going to be designated as a bike lane where the sheriff's department can ticket people for driving in the bike lane, then it's, to me, one of those things like a swimming pool. It's some kind of a hazard. What's that called, Bob? Attractive nuisance. Thank you. I'm just sharing my opinion for safety. My biking days are over, so it would not, you couldn't get me there, but I know a lot of millennials like biking.
Why'd you look at me when you said I'm not a millennial?
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm just concerned about the safety of it, that if we're going to have a paved shoulder and it's allowed to be used as a bike lane, that it should be marked as a bike, painted, bicycle only.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I must not have said it right the first time. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Frederick?
I'm glad that you've gone back to 2 lanes. I'm glad that you have parking on both sides, because I drove over there 3 or 4 times and took a look at it, and Ms. Tinberry is absolutely right. With respect to the bike lane, I watched 25 cars make a left turn onto Temperance going north, and every car behind them moved over into the bike lane and to pass. I don't think you want to put any bollards there to stop people from doing that. But even if they want to make a right turn on Temperance to go east, they pull around the individual. So bikers, if you're going to ride over there, you better have more than just a helmet on, because it's really dangerous. And I've seen a lot of people just pass on the right if you're getting ready to make a left turn, or even sometimes if you're stopping, they'll pull around. So clearly, as Ms. Tinberry has pointed out, that is a serious safety issue. That, and the bike lane isn't that long. If I measured it right, it's like 3/4 of a mile at the most. I think that's a great idea for mobility. I think it's a great idea to give bicycle people an opportunity. And of course, there's a new state law that says you have to give them not less than 3 feet as a result of the 4 folks that got killed up north. So I hope you look at that closely as to what you can do to assure the safety of these people. The parking on both sides is important. I talked to a couple of business people there, and they said, if you only have parking on one side, I hope it's my side. Only because if you come across the street, they aren't going to go up to the corners, with all due respect, and go across the walk with the walk light as you're going to put them in. And lastly, the trees. We used to have, as you know, along Lewis Avenue, about 100 of those crabapple trees. And then they went through and just, with all due respect to my friends from the road commission, they chopped half of them down. Reason because of sight lines and other issues. So let's look carefully at where you're going to put these trees, and further what type of tree, so that we don't have an issue somewhere down the road if everybody comes through and says we got to cut those things down because of sight hazards. So again, I think this is a great idea, so long as you have 2 lanes of parking on both sides and you protect the bicycle guys. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank the Lewis Avenue Redevelopment Committee, because without that committee pushing this in the beginning, it wouldn't have gotten to this board. And I find it kind of laughable that somebody asked to disband the committee tonight, because that's the last thing that we would want to see. We got some positive things going, and it's going to continue to be positive. We got enthusiasm going downtown with business owners and different events and different functions. We're getting people excited. Buildings are moving, so this is just the first step in the long haul with really some good things happening down there. So I appreciate your guys' effort, and I appreciate this board giving us the approval to move forward with the grant. So with that, I look for a motion, Ms. Tinneberry?
No, I just have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
Your $32,000 time and material fee, is that written into the grant?
It is part of the grant.
It is part of the grant. What-
Well, it's part of the non-participating items within the grant, yes.
It'll be paid for out of the grant?
No.
I mean, we'll pay,
Engineering is a non-included item as
Oh.
part of the grant.
what is construction, engineering, and inspection, 45,000?
That will be eventually, when the plans are
Oh,
ultimately approved,
the work.
and we'll make a
Oh.
evaluation at that time. That's a kind of a maximum number that we throw in for a placeholder.
Okay, I just know in some grants, you can write the grant writer's fee into the thing, but.
Yeah, I can't, yeah.
Okay,
Unfortunately, the TAP grant does not permit.
good enough.
Mr. Fredericks?
One more comment, and this is from the historical standpoint, and that is, at one time, there was thought to be a left turn lane installed, and the buses said we can't get around the corners without going up over the curb. Are we going to be taking into consideration the fact that school buses make turns there?
There is no left, yeah, this is stripped, just,
No left turn in here.
there's not a turn lane at the intersection
Okay,
proposed.
that's because the buses, I recall we talked to the bus garage, and they said, holy cow, it's all we can do to get around the corner now. Maybe you'll have to move the parking spots back a little bit unless somebody gets
Right,
in front.
there is a discontinuation of the parking as you get close to the intersection, but yes, there are no turn lanes proposed.
Okay, good, thank you.
Metro funds will be the match of the 120, so we have roughly around that amount, so it kind of works out. Okay, I look for a motion. Bob, you want to go check on Nancy?
I don't know how to word the motion, but I guess I move that we accept the TAP grant and approve the engineering fees as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion is supported. Discussion? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peronin?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. I'm going to put you up on the next one too, Barry, so. Item 8. No, actually, 8D, request for approval of a development design standards waiver. Okay, I'm sorry. Item 8.
G.
G, request for approval of the Manick and Smith agreement for services to study the roundabout at Jackman and Smith Roads. Randy, if you and Barry want to come on up for this one. I'm actually glad you're here. I talked to you this morning. I didn't even think to have you come, so I appreciate you being here.
Okay, well, thank you for having me tonight, board members. One of the things that, it was brought to our attention that if we had one thought process down here would be, what would we like to have? So one of our traffic engineers asked someone from Bedford, what would you like to have down there? And they said, we'd like to have a roundabout. So honestly, we just threw the gum at the wall, didn't think we'd get it, and surprisingly enough, we got a $600,000 grant for a roundabout at Jackman and Smith Road. Well, we all know that that's a well-traveled area, a lot of congestion in there, so we got a CMAQ grant. So this grant starts in 2020, construction starts in 2020, and the road commission's gonna do the match on the grant. So, and we're asking the townships to, if they would look at seeing where they want to go as far as, and the decision doesn't have to be made right now, we just want to know if there's an interest in your part. If there's an interest in your part, we'll pursue it, and we'll get it, going, because that'll give Barry time to get his people to get the engineering aspect of it done. So it doesn't, but it doesn't have to be done tonight or any other, and soon. We just would like to know if there's an interest on your part. If there's not an interest on your part, then the road commission can take the grant and turn it back in. So we do have some time that we can talk about it. We also received a grant for Frenchtown, $600,000 grant for bike lanes going up to the Fermi. And so they took some time, they thought about it, but their grant starts in 2019, so their construction starts, so Barry's getting, he's under the gun to get that stuff done for next year's construction. So I'm here to entertain any questions, and I'll let Barry, if you want to speak. He's got a good design.
Yes. Just real quickly, Lucy, would you help me out here? I think there's enough copies for everybody there. I think I brought enough copies. What we've done in the last few days is to just overlay, now this isn't a design that's cast in stone, but what you have here is a preliminary roundabout design that we had done, overlaid on top of the existing aerial, a Bedford Township aerial, and it also has the property lines shown on it. So it gives you an example. This isn't exactly the final layout or design necessarily, but it gives you an idea of what might be the, we might be looking at in terms of a property take. And as you can see by that, the existing area here in white area is actually existing, that's existing right away because of the existing curve that was through there and previously. And so what you actually have is, it looks like we can probably isolate it maybe to just one parcel, or if not just one parcel, minor takes from other parcel. But the goal of the preliminary study would be to refine this design, look at utility relocation, look at property takes, and figure out what the actual cost of the construction and land acquisition could be. And then from that, we bring that back to the board with refined estimates, and then also provide that to the road commission and for some final decisions.
Okay, just for, so if we're looking at just the one parcel, our original discussions, we had talked with the road commission when we met, it was, we're thinking the total project would be around 850. That's 250 above the grant, so our share would be 125, 120. So are we still kind of thinking in that ballpark with that easement that's already kind of in place where we'd only have to pick up one property, or are we thinking that was a really high guess?
Well, I think, I mean, this is intended just to be a graphic, a quick graphic for you guys tonight, just to get an idea of what we're thinking about. But it looks promising that we would limit it to one particular parcel. We've got to massage it a little bit and refine the geometrics, but it would be the value of whatever. I think that parcel is on the market for somewhere around $80,000 right now, plus you'd have all the demo costs. And there may be some other easement, minor easement acquisition. Of course, you will have some utility relocation and the like, but ultimately, that's what the goal of the original study that we're proposing tonight, to bring back those real numbers for everybody so we can make some decisions.
Okay, and I'm just saying, you know, for the board, you know, we're gonna spend $7,000 on you guys to do the study, okay? And if we can kind of foresee in our minds that, well, it's only gonna be 75 apiece, or it's only gonna be, you know what I mean? That's a lot different than 125. So I just didn't know if that was just a high guess, Randy. I know we kind of talked about in the beginning, because I'm looking at it as one parcel engineering, 100, 125, you know, you split that, now you're down to, you know, 60 or roughly, you know, that's a big difference for us. And plus it's budget, it's 2020, so it's not like we have to budget it and, you know.
Yeah, this is definitely a 2020 project, which would mean that the actual cost and expenditures would not be in this fiscal year, but next.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, right now, I think, and like I told Barry, I says, you know, right now there's so many unknown answers out there. Is the land available? Can we get the land? How are we gonna get the land? Will the roundabout come in? You know, it's like just like throwing the gum against the wall. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it don't. And right now, that's where we're at, because we don't really know, without a preliminary study, we don't really know if it's even gonna be doable. I mean, $7,000 is a lot of money. I won't say it's not. But walking away from $600,000,
Yeah.
that's a long ways to walk. And we do know that there's a problem down that area. And so we're trying to accommodate that problem, but we just, there's so many unknown answers right now.
Could the road commission split the cost of the study with us?
I can take it back to my board, Mr. Supervisor, and ask them.
Okay.
The road commission's looking to partner up. They're not gonna throw everything onto Bedford. We're looking to partner up, but one of the things that we are looking at also is that the needs in Bedford are rising faster than we can accommodate. And that's some of the issues that we're having. We got Secor over there, Stearns Road, all of them roads are starting to get well populated. So we just got to start picking off when we get the grants and start moving forward that way, because it would break the road commission to try to keep up with what's going on down here, honestly.
Questions from the board, Mr. Frederick?
I looked at the SEMCOG data in terms of accidents. This is not high on the list. There's a lot of congestion mitigation. There's a lot of issues of people trying to make a left and a return and a right turn and all that kind of stuff. But one of the questions I gave you a heads up on is who is going to start the eminent domain procedure if it's necessary? If the citizen says, I don't like your number, and who's going to start that? Is this township going to be the one who starts an eminent domain proceeding against its own citizens?
Oh, that's good. That's a fair question. We don't have the best name in Bedford anyway, so that ain't gonna bother us. So, I would imagine
Thank you for that non-answer.
I imagine our attorney would probably get with your attorney, and they would start that process. We hope it doesn't have to come to that. We truly do. It's not something that we're looking forward to, but
well, it just does happen, you know.
Yeah, it does happen, and it's a very valid question, you know. But I can't sit here and tell you tonight without speaking to my board who would start that process.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering, if you're going to have some people sitting out here throwing rocks at us if we start a eminent domain proceeding against our own citizens. I'd rather you do it. That way we can say, well, they started it. So.
There you go.
Well, just so you know from me, Randy, I love the idea. I think it's awesome. We got a grant. It's a way to clean up an area, you know, without us breaking the bank. It's an opportunity to clean up an intersection, whether it backs up, has accidents, whatever. It's a mess right now. And population's only going to get worse. And if we turn down this grant, we're not going to have the funds to do anything with it out of our general fund, and neither are you guys, I don't think, in the near future. And traffic's only going to get worse. So this is a good opportunity for the board to jump on something that's going to cost us next budget, really, in my eyes, you know, not minimal amount, but when you look at the grand scheme of what's happening there, minimal amount. You know, I mean, most of our projects are, you know, Douglas Road, $400,000 or $500,000. Crab Road, $400,000 or $500,000. $800,000. I mean, this is going to cost us hopefully under $60,000, $70,000 in the end. I hope, Barry, right? Yeah.
Well, the good thing about it, Mr. Supervisor, is that you have time. It's not like they're in the 11th hour. I mean, we have a whole year to kind of get things together, to figure out what we want to do, how we want to do it. And, you know, we're trying to get the horse into the...
When do you have to know whether or not Bedford Township wants this grant?
I won't have to know for quite a while yet, honestly.
Okay, so we got time.
Yeah, you got time.
Okay.
We got time. I can't tell you the date, but we have time. And, you know, we can do our homework and we can figure it out. And then if it still looks like it's not going to work, we can just come back to the board and say, you know what, let's walk away.
And I want to let you know, too, I've met with Mike Pollock on this, who was, you know, calling you quite a bit, and he really likes it. So he's changed his mind at this point, so. Ms. Tenenberry?
I apologize for the coughing jag.
We forget.
Happens to old ladies and can't help it. Well, I'm a baby boomer, and I'm not excitable like the younger generation. I totally hate it. I totally hate it. And I haven't talked to one single person that likes it. And I've talked to younger people than ourselves, our children and their friends. Nobody likes it. So my question is, and I missed part of this, your explanation, I apologize for that, but when Lamar talked about eminent domain, a township doesn't own right-of-way. So why would we be involved in taking right-of-way for a road that we don't own, we don't have liability for, we don't have any responsibility or jurisdiction over?
And that's a very good question, and that's why I made the statement, our lawyer would get with that lawyer over there, and they would figure it out.
No, I don't want that lawyer getting involved because we shouldn't be involved.
Well, we want to make sure that all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed, you know, so.
Your lawyer should take care of that, Randy.
Well, they probably will take care of it, but I'm sure they're going to bring Bedford into it because there's going to be pushback on anything we do. You know, in all fairness to Bedford, and, you know, there's a lot of things that roundabouts, people don't like about it, but the road commission takes a stand of, our job is to get the traffic from point A to point B as fast, as safe as possible. That's the whole idea of roadways, you know, to move that traffic along. And every time you stop that car for a red light, you back that traffic up. Prime example is Secor and Smith. Yeah, that's a prime example of what's going on. So with this is just one thing that we thought we'd never get. We honestly didn't think we'd get this grant. And when we got it, it shocked us as much as it shocked you. Because, you know, when they told me they applied for it, I kind of looked at it and thought, well, it's a shot. But CMAQ says, you know, there's congestion down there, so let's give them the grant. You know, this is not something that has to be done tonight. You know, it truly don't. But I would really ask the board to really consider thinking about going forward and at least do the homework. And let's look and see how this whole bag shakes out. It might come back good, favorable, and it might not. If it looks like it's going to be a big fight, then we can have this meeting again and say, hey, you know what, it's not worth it, let's just walk away. And we turn the grant back in. That's my viewpoint on it.
Well, I want to just clarify something. I am not like what you thought Bedford is. I'm a big, huge supporter of the Monroe County Road Commission.
Oh, I know you are.
You I mean, I think you do a totally excellent job with the amount of money that you have.
We got one vote down here.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I
Two.
tell everybody that because people don't understand the limits that you have with the funding that you get. And, you know, if you want to hear bad, you should talk about MDOT, not the Monroe County Road Commission.
Well, thank you.
But my point is, I mean, it's not just money, it's about liability and jumping into an area that townships don't belong, actually. I'm wondering if we could trade with Frenchtown and take the bike thing and give them the roundabout.
Well, let's hear from somebody that's not a baby boomer.
All right.
Anybody else?
Hey, Paul.
No one else on the board.
Mr. Steiner?
I'll tell you what, I'll take the middle of the road. Paul, you just love it, Nancy, you hate it, so I'm sort of in between. How's that?
There you go.
So, I guess one of the things, I agree that it is a traffic congestion area. I just want to change one terminology. We don't want to get cars as fast as possible, we need to get them as efficiently as possible.
Okay.
Because we have way too many people that drive too fast already, and they're not paying attention because of their wonderful electronics and smart technology. I too earlier today had a conversation, actually with Mr. Francis, and the eminent domain thing came up then, and we were thinking the same thing. I do have to agree with Ms. Tinbury that we don't own the road, we don't own anything in this, so I find it hard to put funds out for our attorney's involvement in eminent domain. Not as a disrespect comment, just in general.
Yes.
I have a hard time with $7,000. The only thing I will say that as a true partnership, if we really want to consider this, I think Mr. Peroni's idea, if the road commission splits this down the middle, we start as a true partner from the beginning, that's probably a good start if we want to go that route. You mentioned it, and I was going to mention Smith and Secor. That, to me, is one of our hugest nightmares. I mean, traffic lines up all the way to the state line and then some. And as we know, the accidents just don't stop, unfortunately.
But that grant is for this, it can only be used for this intersection.
Right.
Mr. Francis?
And Smith and Secor would be a multitude more than this one is going to cost, because you'd have to acquire quite a bit of land over there and maybe even widen Secor. That's a big deal. That's probably several years down the road. I've driven several roundabouts. I don't have a problem with them. I think the people that don't like them haven't driven them. The people that use that intersection, all they have to do is drive there one time where you don't have to stop and wait for the traffic. You just merge along and roll around and you're through. So I think once they get used to it, they'll see the benefit of it and like it.
I could take you sometime, Nancy, to a roundabout and
I've been to many roundabouts.
get you out.
And you don't just easily go through, you have to stop.
I'll tell you what, how about, this would satisfy a lot of people, and I'm half funny but half really serious. What about an online simulator? And I'm serious, an online simulator that people could be like they're in a car and drive through. Because I'll tell you what, I've been through many roundabouts, but then you go to a brand new one, you really have to sit there and think, okay, because this one's a multi-lane. Look down off Cherry and Detroit Avenue. You got multiple roundabouts in there, and people are messed up all the time in those. And I sit there try to make sure I'm doing the right thing going through those, and the next thing you know, it's like this guy's like, whoa, wait a minute, I need to go that way, and cuts right across in front of you. So think about that and propose that to somebody. See if somebody could create an online simulator type program so people could. I mean, hey, so many people are in electronics today. Not Nancy. She said she's baby boomer. So, but
she's got a smartphone. Mr. Frederick?
Real quick, are you sure you don't have to take anything from this bar that sits on the corner there? Because I'm looking at this, and that bar, if that stays there, they'll walk out right in the middle of the roundabout. Well,
that's one of the parts that you
maybe that wouldn't be all bad for some situations, but I'm wondering about that. But if obviously you'll look at that as you do the work. But number two, the first time I hit a roundabout, I had to go around twice to figure out how to get off.
Mr. Clements?
Well, I was completely opposed to the project. I don't weigh in on roundabout or no roundabout. No matter what we do, we're going to have half like it and half can't stand it. To me, there's two interesting things. The first is that this is a 2020 encumbrance. It's not a next fiscal year. I'm already on record that I think we really swung for the fence on our budget for this coming year, and we have to be very careful about large expenditures. But after sitting back and talking to a few people, it seems like to me that there's very rarely a time in government when you can truly impact the next 10, 15, 20 years. We know, given the housing developments that are going in, we know based on the population, we know based on traffic flow and tendency, that intersection is not going to get better. And there is rarely going to be an opportunity in this township's life cycle where for under 100,000, at 100,000, whatever that number is, that we could impact and have that kind of positive influence. I told somebody today at lunch that I think too many politicians worry about what people think about them today. I think the real measure of our character and the measure of the good we do will be when people look back 20 years and say, what did the board do to set Bedford in the right direction? So based on that, I think the opportunity justifies this expenditure. And I appreciate the Road Commission particularly stepping up and willing to be a partner in this project. I think it speaks to where we are in trying to make this kind of improvement that everybody realizes is somewhat of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Let me just say this, and I'll go out on a limb right here just a little bit. Trustee Steiner made the comment to have a partnership. Barry, what is your bill? How much are you going to design this for?
Well, the study was $7.
Okay. The Road Commission, we will commit to $3,500 to do the preliminary study to make everybody's mind at ease. You can come up with $3,500, we come up with $3,500. We'll start this partnership, see where it goes, and then that way, if it doesn't work out, we both lose our money and we turn the grant back in.
Okay. I entertain a motion.
Am I a good guy or what?
She's got
You're
a
a
question
good
before your
guy.
motion.
Right.
The
And that
calls,
way, we'll at least we'll have our information.
unfortunately, I'm getting the same calls Nancy are getting from people who live in that area. And their question is, and maybe you can answer this for them, instead of a roundabout, why can't the road be moved and a light be put in?
We can at the expense of Bedford, because we don't get the CMAQ grant. Because it's congestion down there, mitigation.
Has that been,
And that way it keeps them cars moving, is the whole idea. When they're sitting there idling, it just puts more stuff up in the air and it congests and mitigation, and so that just, it's Air Quality Act is what it is. This way it keeps the cars moving, they're not sitting there idling, waiting for red lights and stuff like that.
Randy, are you done?
I just wanted to know that, because that's the question everybody's asking. And would that be part of the study at all? Would they look into, would that be a better idea than the roundabout?
The roundabout is, as Mr. Pierce said, is what was funded as part of the CMAQ grant.
Correct.
And because of the congestion mitigation, the efficient movement of traffic around the roundabout rather than stop and start the traffic and that sort of thing is what was approved.
Barry, can you talk into the mic? Here comes
sorry.
George.
Yeah, I'm
He's
sorry.
mad.
So I believe, we can certainly ask the question, but it would be, I would say it's highly, highly doubtful that any other alternative layout involving a traffic signal would be approved by SEMCOG or equivalent alternative to this grant.
Okay. Well, that's the question everybody's asking me, so I thought we better answer it now.
Sure.
At the point, in 2020, what's Smith Road going to look like to Douglas? Is that something that's on the agenda or on the plan to do something with that? Because we do get a lot of complaints about Smith.
With this roundabout coming in, we've already looked at what's going to happen from Jackman to Lewis, and then from the next one over would be Douglas. So we know that we're probably going to have to go in there, do some milling and filling, trenching it and stuff like that. That's going to be a big expense to the road commission. And we're probably looking at maybe sticking $500,000 in this thing just on one side to try and get this whole thing to come up. So when we say it's $100,000, yeah, the match is $100,000, but the road commission would probably end up spending well above that. We'll probably end up spending another $500,000 to get the lead going into this roundabout done, because we got to come back from Lewis, we got to start trenching that out, putting 2-foot shoulders in there, paved shoulders, and then try to get into that roundabout.
Okay.
So that's our plans, but everything hinges on the roundabout, whether we do it or not.
Mr. Tenenberry, do you have another question?
No.
Mr. Clements?
With that, I make a motion that this board approve Manick and Smith for the study of the roundabout at Jackman and Smith, with a split of $3,500 each to the Monroe County Road Commission and to Bedford Township.
Can I make a friendly amendment? I don't think your motion can include $3,500 spent by the road commission, because their board has to determine that. So it would be just what you want to make a motion for the ARTA board to.
Then we'll amend to just our $3,500. Thank you.
One more friendly amendment. Governing law, since this works in Michigan, we're in Michigan, forget Ohio law, this is in Michigan. Okay? He's smiling. That's the lawyer in me looking at this thing.
Why wouldn't Michigan law control? It would
Well,
be.
that's where the work is, the contract's made
That's
here.
right. So the contract needs to be amended to change the forum language to Michigan, not Ohio.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Motion and support of Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please, Drew?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
No, because I don't want to spend any money for a roundabout.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Richburger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-1. Thank you both very much. Randy, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8E, request for approval to continue the Monroe Conservation District Service
Missed
Agreement.
D.
Well, I moved it to the, to the
Oh,
end.
sorry, okay.
It can, yeah. Item 8,
E.
E,
Sorry.
request, request for approval of a development design standards waiver for Sunrise Window and Dollar General.
Mr. Supervisor, this has been here, this issue has been here on a regular basis for some time. I brought it up at the last Planning Commission, asking Ms. Kincaid when the general ordinance would be fixed so that we didn't have to keep doing this. In her memo to you, she said the difficulty is that the Monroe County Road Drain Commission has got so much work that they don't have time to put the specification together. So they expect this to be fixed sometime this fall or early winter. But in the meantime, there has to be a waiver with respect to the materials that are used in some of the drainage things, because the new products are not being listed in our general ordinance. So again, upon the recommendation of the Planning Commission, I recommend a waiver from the Development Design Standards Ordinance Number 65 regarding drainage pipe materials, provided, however, that the installation shall be in accordance with the pipe manufacturer's specification, subject to approval by the Monroe County Drain Commission and the Township Engineer, and that the granting of the variation will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the area in which the property is situated.
Support.
Ms. Stanberry?
I'd like to ask the attorney if the motion could state for the Sunrise Window Dollar General and any future development that comes with the exact same criteria needed, so that we're not slowing it down. Anyone that comes that wants to do this, the exact same thing with these exact same materials, can be approved by the Planning Commission and move forward and not have to wait, what, 3 weeks? How many of our weeks they've had to wait? We're talking about streamlining our process, and yet we continue to slow down the process.
The problem that I see is each project is different. And
They're asking for the exact same change in materials that we've given 5 or 6 times before, exact.
I know the board has done it before, and I support the board in doing that because the ordinance does need to be amended. So, however, each request is different, and it really needs to be measured on its own merits. And the ordinance needs to, the ordinance needs to be changed.
I agree, but until that time.
And then it would apply uniformly to all similar requests. So I'm hesitant to say yes to do that.
Okay, just asked. Got
Mr.
it.
Frederick?
We brought that up at the Planning Commission as whether or not it could stay there, but because of the language of the general ordinance, it must be waived by the Township Board.
Yeah, that would waive.
And his colleague said, no, it has to come to the Township Board because that's the process. So here we are. Hopefully it'll get fixed in the next few months. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll make it a priority to.
Well, you can make it a priority, but the Drain Commission is not.
As soon as they get us the data, we can, I think it's an easy fix.
Yeah, I agree.
I call a question. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, keep discussion, the clerk's not here.
Okay.
Could you call the roll, please?
I'm sick.
Oh.
Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger says aye. Mr. Prony?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Okay, item 8E, request for approval to continue Monroe Conservation District Service Agreement. Ms. Velikowitz here. I told her she could speak briefly if you want to. Okay. I talked to her, and she is really excited. She's, well, come on, Connie. Say a couple words. I told Tinneberry.
Actually, normally our meetings are out by now. I actually had to leave my conservation meeting just a little bit ago to get here. So I'm just here tonight to ask that you support our annual drive to raise funds. I've been here how many times, and you've always been really great supporting us. And thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Like to
Ms.
make a
Kinnery?
motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the service agreement between the Bedford Township and Monroe County Conservation District through June 2019 in the amount of $1,000.
Okay, we have a motion.
Support.
Motion and support of Mr. Francis. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 8F, request for approval to accept the bid for the 2000 Ford Ranger from J. Hinkleman for $1,855. Mr. Steiner?
Pretty simple, and we've had this up a number of times, had reduced the cost, minimum bid of 15 this time. So I move to approve the bid for $1,855 for the 2000 Ford Ranger.
I second with the friendly amendment to state J. Hinkleman was the bidder.
As presented, so Jay Hinkleman.
Next time I won't ask Al how much to sell a car for from the beginning. No,
I'll support
just
it.
kidding.
Say as is where
It's in the as presented.
Ms. Tinneberry, did Ms. Tinneberry support it?
I support it.
Okay, Mr. Clements is supported. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 9, comments from the public. Comments limited to 5 minutes. Come on up.
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. As stated previously, 5 minutes isn't enough. Regarding a June 24th Minority newspaper article titled Grant, Representative Shepherd stated the township applied for the grant before but was passed over. I contacted him, but as yet have not received a response back. The township and TAC had a grant, but we rejected it. Also, a comment stating other boards had ignored downtown Temperance is totally false. Now, with regards to the public accusations that I have spread rumors, here is a fact. The term B&B has taken on a new meaning in Temperance. Barron Insurance has bought another building. Not listed, they pursued the owners to purchase. Their first buy was when they outbid, I believe by $20,000, a downtown resident who wanted to buy the same to set up a hair salon for his wife. The hair salon is what the downtown needs. I also need to share with the public that following the first meeting in July, while talking to a complete stranger who is a fellow resident, Mr. Peroni interrupted us. I was talking with her and told the person to not believe one word of anything I said. This incident can be validated by Ms. Hirschberger and Mr. Clements. Lastly, as to the Lewis Avenue Committee, risking additional attacks to me and my family, those facial gestures you might have seen tonight on TV, and those somewhat threatening comments made by Mr. Peroni tonight were directed at me. I am more than willing to discuss the multitude of valid issues which give legitimate grounds to my request to disband this committee. Comments by the board members reflect the need for TAC input for history to the study that was done. And it's sad to say, but that committee is unfairly patting themselves on the back. This isn't new. Some of the very features that Barry has used were copied from information that I shared with him. So it's really saddening to think that a group of volunteers who worked for a very, very long time have been degraded. We have been slandered publicly. Personally, today I was actually told I was not invited to a public meeting for Downtown Temperance Days. People, the Temperance Action Committee is the originators of that event, and I was not allowed to attend. Additionally, the Farmers Market, that was Temperance Action Committee. The Temperance Action Committee also has had a Christmas event in the past, And as you all well know, there has been an effort put forth to have a blizzard event. That's going to be secular, however, because it is going to take place, from what I was told. I do not read social media. I just don't have time for it. Is going to be held at St. Paul's Church. So you asked me why there are concerns with this. There are concerns, and I can give you grounds. I actually have grounds for recall. I will not pursue this because I will not waste $20,000 of the taxpayers' money to recall somebody. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public?
Good evening, Logan Tisdale, Brandywine Street. I'm going to try to make some positive comments tonight. That'll be released to the board, huh?
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Steiner for inviting me to the Lions golf outing here on Saturday. That was a great event. I sure enjoyed myself that, and I thought they do a wonderful job there. So if you've never played that, it might be a nice event to get into. Secondly, I want to say something about you did something tonight which I thought was really very smart, was to get the 2014 Ford Expedition to the fire department. When the vehicles for the contract officers kind of get to a point when they need to be replaced, I don't see why you wouldn't consider strongly taking those vehicles and using them for the township. For maybe the ordinance officers, they're certainly a lot more safer than what they're driving now. They look a lot more official. They're a lot more comfortable riding. They can carry more equipment in that, and whether the fire department needs it or the ordinance people should use that, maybe that's what we should do. Recycle those. If they're kept in good shape, they should run for a long time. And so I think that that was something that was very positive to use that. I saw that parked in front of the fire department there on Lewis Avenue, and I thought that that's what they were going to use that for. So I think that's a pretty smart thing to do. About the roundabout, I drive that road all the time because I live in a subdivision right off of Smith Road. That intersection is scary at times because I have no idea what it looks like when I'm going southbound on Jackman Road and I'm going to turn right or go west on Smith Road. If a car pulls alongside of me there, I can't see the people, whether or not it's a green light or red light. And so when I try to get out there to make the right-hand turn, when I stop, I really can't see too many people. Basically what that is that's two T intersections within less than a football field of each other, which is always kind of scary when you're thinking about that and stuff. And I was traveling westbound the other day, and I was going to make a right-hand turn, and I saw a guy, he was going to pass in a left-hand turn that you turn from east going to north from Smith Road onto Jackman Road. He actually passed in that left turn lane and stuff, and I thought to myself, that was just a accident looking for a place to happen. So whatever you do there, I hope you make a good decision on that. I don't know why you don't get a hold of maybe traffic services with the Michigan State Police who would take a look at that and give you some suggestions. I don't know if that's something that they do anymore. I've been removed from the state police for a long time, but that might be something you might ask Lieutenant Cuevas to look at that. Also, I want to make a comment that in July 21st, there was a really nice article in Bedford Now, and I think it was also in the Monroe News. State Trooper heads traffic unit to reduce traffic accidents. I think it explains not only to the people in this township and the community that the state police come down here to reduce traffic accidents. They write traffic citations, not to be vindictive to people, but to reduce traffic accidents and to make traveling our roads safer. That's what I've always advocated every time I've come up here, is that traffic enforcement reduces traffic accidents. And that officer is down here for that specific reason. It also said in there, the state police is not required to meet a quota for traffic citations, but prevent future traffic accidents. It was 50 years ago this year that I joined the Michigan State Police. At no time did anybody ever say to me that I had a quota to meet when I went out there and enforced the traffic laws of the state. I did it for the simple reason is that was my job, and I felt I was doing it in the hopes that somewhere down the line somebody would be saved through those traffic enforcement actions. We don't always know what those things produce. All we can hope for is that it reduces the number of traffic accidents in Bedford Township. So I'm thankful that article came out, and I think it was very informative. And thank you so much again for tonight.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Steiner?
I passed tonight.
Okay, Ms. Tenneberry?
I have a couple questions. One, I've had calls about the liquor.
Is your
license.
microphone on?
No, but that was kind of planned. I had a question, I've had questions about the liquor license that this board approved to move forward, and I'd like to have an update if Trudy would do that during her time. Secondly, I saw an email from Lamar that said that the chief's contract should be on the agenda, but it didn't see it on the agenda tonight. So I'm wondering what happened to that. His request to Mr. Manning that came through as confidential, but is not confidential, as it has to do with a contract of the board. And then I saw on the website that the assessing department has a request for employees that this board has not approved, and I wonder why it's still on the website. So could you address that? Okay. And then I'd just like to close with this. You can be as offended as you wish. I believe it's my job on behalf of all Bedford Township taxpayers to speak the truth. If I have asked tough questions of our staff or even fellow board members, I will continue to do so. I'm not here to make friends at the expense of doing my job. I will not close my eyes to a lack of transparency, lack of full disclosure, or lack of the public's participation in all areas. My job is to scrutinize how we handle public funds, and I intend to continue to do that as long as I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Mr. Clements?
I have nothing.
Mr. Frederick?
Well, two things. Congratulations to Craig. He's the new guy that's going to sit up here. I was not successful, but that happens. Number two, all those primary winners, I wish them luck in the general election this fall. Number three, and it came up again tonight, the waste baskets that are in the DDA section. I don't know who's supposed to empty those, but the one in front of Wendy's looked like a dump the other day again.
Went like how many days ago? Honestly, because
I'm trying to remember.
If it was more than a
gone
couple-
over the weekend, so it was probably like Friday.
just
Friday
this
or
past
Saturday?
Friday?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's on our schedule for Mondays and Fridays.
Oh,
for our
okay,
maintenance guys
that's
to
what I
pick
was
it up.
going to ask, if somebody would.
They're
make
supposed to be
it.
doing
Okay.
it, so unless somebody's dumping garbage in there and we're.
Yeah. Well, that could well be, that's the only other thing. And that's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Francis?
Just a reminder that your summer real estate taxes are due by September the 14th. After that time, why the state requires us to add penalty and interest, and we'd rather not have to do that.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Liquor license, we received 2 applications, and those will be coming to the board the first meeting in September. Just want to thank all my election workers. Approximately 90 workers were out there at the polls, and all my polling locations. It went pretty smoothly. There were a few complaints. The machines are a little slower than the older ones, but they are more accurate than the older ones also. So thank you to all of my workers and my office staff. They did a great job, and without them, the elections would be a lot harder for us. And that's all.
Okay, a few things. Voss Lighting is installing the lights. They're going to continue. I believe they're done for the most part with this building inside. They're waiting on the outside lights to come in. But that's gone very smoothly for the most part. Met with the new president for the BBA a couple days ago about how we can work more together as a township. It was a very good meeting. It was about an hour long. And I explained to him that's been my goal, is to work together with everybody. Beautification, Parks Board, schools. I meet with the schools on a regular basis, so that's been a big deal, and I think the BBA is a huge part of what we're doing. Getting people involved with events, it's huge. Getting involved with the churches are wanting a partnership with the township and you know, work together on beautifying, you know, because our maintenance guys, it's tough for them to keep up on the things outside of their day-to-day deals of cutting grass, you know, it's tough for them to get to that fence line, you know, that is grown shrubbery. So we've got some church people and some people out of the public that want to get involved and start doing community service and helping out. So we're really putting our heads together. We're meeting tomorrow morning with the schools, the park board, or members of the park board, Beautification Committee, and myself and a couple others, but it should be a really good meeting to continue that. The Seniors Center, we're still working on a plan and engaging ProMedica. We'll be talking to them, I would think, in the near future. Dr. Carl set a meeting up with them, and then we'll be going there pretty soon. So look forward for, you know, just continuing to move forward on that. I just wanted to mention too, you know, when I had gotten involved with the portion of the maintenance building that was wrecked, you know, I got some emails, why am I getting involved? Well, throughout this process, when we got, you know, the quote back, the insurance company was only going to repair the one wall. And my department got involved, and we demanded that they get a structural engineer on that. Well, because of that, we're getting the whole building redone that was taken out. So I think it's important that, you know, we all work together and do, you know, because we had a better outcome. Maybe I see something somebody else didn't. So I was at a meeting today for Temperance Days planning. I try to attend all meetings like this that individuals want me to get involved with. I think it's key for the township to be involved in planning of events if we're asked to be involved. I think the collaboration is huge. You know, same thing with the Christmas festival that's going on in the this winter, and meetings with them quite frequently. Farmers market, I'm staying involved with the farmers market. I've been staying involved with them since day one as much as I can. So I think it's important not to, you know, tell them what to do or anything, but just be a support, you know, and be part of what's going on in our township. I just want to give out sympathy to Shayla Pitson and her family with the loss of her mom. I know she's going through a hard time. The assessing department, those should be off the website as we're not taking applications anymore. It'll be coming to this board for the recommendations of who we think we should hire in the near future. They're putting a plan together to bring together to prove to this board that they do need other employees. So that'll be coming up in the near future, but we did interview some people, and, you know, so, but it will be off the website. So, does that answer your question, or did I not answer it? I maybe didn't understand it.
Well, I mean, it answers your question, but I'm wondering how there could be requests for job when the board hadn't approved any jobs. We heard heard a speech from the assessor, but the board at the end of that did not say, let's go forward and hire. I mean,
we're not hiring. This board's going to hire.
Yeah, but the board didn't say we wanted to fill those positions. We wanted any positions. You cannot bypass this board, and frequently I see this board being bypassed in many different areas, and I just think that you need to have the board approve positions if we're going to hire, if we're going to have openings. The board.
But this is an open position, though. The land division coordinator, we no longer have one, so it's an open position.
There was no land division coordinator. I'm not going to argue with you tonight, but there was no official title of land division coordinator.
Okay. No further comments. We stand adjourned.